Good afternoon, everyone. So as you heard before, I'm Imke, and Professor Alan Brent, which you've obviously, I assume you've all seen around this week. He's my supervisor on my study. So this piece of the work is called New Insights into Socio-Technical Transitions, a Technology Management Perspective. So just to give you an overview of the largest study of my PhD is where did it all start. So always been interested in sustainable development, but then when I decided to do PhD, stumbled across sustainability transitions, and I come from an engineering background, so systems really interests us, and how do we mobilize systems and how can we change to a better future state. The second part was the role of technology in all of this. Again, from an engineering perspective, we enjoy technology, developing it, all of that, and what is the role of this within the context of sustainability transitions. The third part then, technology management. This undisputed fact that we have to manage technology if we want to really gain or achieve what we set out to do with that specific technology. So essentially it was the amalgamation of all of these three concepts, this global challenge of sustainability, the role of technology within that, and then also how do we manage technology within this context. So initially we started with, on the other side, the kind of the inductive way where we looked at multi-technology technologies or nexus technologies, and I wanted to understand, which is a lot like your study, about how do we diffuse these technologies in order to bring about a socio-technical transition. So again, from a technology management perspective, what I then realized was that technology management and socio-technical transitions, there seems to exist some kind of disconnect between those two schools of thought, which then resulted in me wanting to explore the disconnect between socio-technical transitions and technology management. Now, literature, across the board, literature almost calls for crossover between different disciplines, and it is encouraged, so that's why I felt quite comfortable embarking on this journey to understand how these two fields of study actually interact. So there's three pieces that I went about to understand the disconnect between socio-technical transitions and technology management, and the question mark obviously because I'm not sure whether that actually exists. The bibliometric analysis, that's the first part that was done in this, well, one of the parts, it's not done yet, to understand what is the overlap of these two bodies of literature, and essentially to understand how do they share intellectual roots. Second part is technology management from a socio-technical transitions perspective. So there I looked at what are the strengths of socio-technical transition and what technology management can actually learn from that body of knowledge. And the third part, which is what I will be presenting this afternoon, is these insights into socio-technical transitions by learning from technology management. So where will all of this head? That's the big question. So the literature I looked at was socio-technical systems, socio-technical transitions, looked at the most prominent theories, approaches, and frameworks within the socio-technical transitions literature. And then obviously the challenges, because I want to understand how technology management could enhance our thoughts on socio-technical transitions. What I did here was just a content analysis and kind of then grouped all of these challenges together, essentially at an aggregate level that there's 4 groups. The first is that there's multiple approaches that obviously results in quite a few challenges if we want to mobilize socio-technical transitions. There's a lack of consistent knowledge stock, which obviously then also has some challenges if we want to actually achieve transitions. And then how do we make this practical? How do you operationalize it? How do we institutionalize this? Another challenge that emerged from literature. And then the fourth one, which was really one of the driving factors behind the bigger study, is this lack of micro-foundation for active behavior. And it's almost that first bullet point there where it says the driving forces that can contribute towards transitioning are not clearly explained in these approaches. So really what drives transitions? So even though I come from a background that likes to put things in boxes and a very analytical approach to it, I do acknowledge that the challenges, actually this is a truer representation of these challenges that we are facing. So then I went on to define 5 goals. So what are these goals? If we want to enhance the socio-technical transition frameworks and approaches, what goals should we set for ourselves? First one, we should allow for consensus building between all of these different approaches. And then, does this mean simplification and standardization? That's what we'll find out. And then to improve the application selection process and reduce the confusion between the frameworks and approaches, second goal. The third goal, to address the barriers that hinders accumulation of a consistent knowledge stock for socio-technical transitions. The fourth goal that I developed was to enable or foster collaboration and integration crossover between the various socio-technical transition perspectives, so not just between different disciplines, but also between different concepts within socio-technical transition literature. And then also to assist with the process of, again, making this practical. I think some of the conversations, especially in the concluding remarks yesterday, is about how do we make this practical? How do we really turn this into action? Obviously, we want to learn from technology management. So there's a few things from technology management that I just want to highlight, which kind of drove this new insight into socio-technical transitions. Technology management frameworks allowed for this common and shared understanding of technology management. Technology management identifies a few activities, which is identification, selection, acquisition, exploitation of technology, that is very much linked to business processes, which again mobilizes an organization towards technological capability. Then the exploitation of these technological capabilities is what technology management is all about. So it's very much capability focused. And then again, that operationalization of this, institutionalization, there's a lot of tools. There's tools, practical techniques that's linked to all of these different processes or activities within technology management, which I think addresses some of the challenges that I found in the social-technical transitions literature. And then improving the technological capability, so it's geared towards improving it, so it's not just setting it or developing it, it's a continuous process. And then supporting activities, the last two, it's these supporting activities, looking again outside of the technology management literature, linking it with other disciplines that could essentially enhance these views. So then there's 4 propositions of how we could arrive at new insights into socio-technical transitions. The first one is the development and exploitation of a capability, so it's very much capability based. So with this, what's interesting, the unit of analysis does not become the system or the actual transition, but rather the capability to transition. What's interesting here, I don't know if you're familiar with capability maturity models, but the conversation almost turns to that if you start thinking about a punctuated equilibrium, where it is a moving system, and the more capable you become of transitioning, the richer these capabilities have to become. So again, there's a lot of moving parts, very dynamic system. Secondly, the identification of a set of core rationales, and we said there that however small this is at first, we believe that there's value in this in order to address some of these challenges that we do see in there. Obviously, these substantial differences between all of these different perspectives and approaches could pose difficulties to this, but we are confident that to some extent this is possible. And this obviously links to the conversation about standardization, where standardization is obviously, and given the conversations over the past week and especially this afternoon, context is so incredibly important. But standardization doesn't mean across the board, but there's definitely highlighting the similarities has got great value in terms of shared understanding. Then practical tools and techniques, we need to develop these in order to provide direction for such socio-technical transitions. And then a set of supporting activities. How do we increasingly include other disciplines and other developed tools and techniques in this perspective, this capability perspective? So how do we use existing things? And that is well-known things like project management, innovation management, that kind of thing. How do we link this to make this really practical? So with these propositions, the idea is not to define some predetermined idea of socio-technical transitions or specific future, but it's rather to contribute towards the conversation of socio-technical transitions, to try and provide alternative views on how do we mobilize socio-technical systems. It's definitely also not to promote kind of a one model fits all view. In fact, that should not be entertained at all. Rather, the idea is that if we have these core capabilities, it could be then customized within a specific context. And then it gets to the management of socio-technical transitions. It's thus conceived as the development and exploitation of transition capabilities, rather than focusing on the transition itself. So the proposed approach is then to firstly establish a common goal, which is transition capability, which we believe could sit within each of these different approaches. So you don't have to have one approach, but the capabilities might be similar within the different approaches. The capabilities being what a system should be able to do to transition. And then secondly, it aims to define the boundaries and relationship between activities that could support the development and exploitation of transition capabilities and other transition management principles. So at this stage, it seems like all three different parts of this investigation into the disconnect between socio-technical transitions and technology management is pointing in the direction of a capability-based approach to socio-technical transitions.
Is the capabilities approach of Martha Nussbaum the basis for choosing capabilities?
No, so it was from, within this specific part of the work, it was that technology management has got that capability approach. So the idea is to kind of try and overlap these two, how can we bring these two schools of thought closer together, and from a technology, learning from technology management, and that's the work of Fall and Centre de Mar and those guys, to kind of understand, can we also include this capability exploitation within socio-technical transitions. So that was purely from a technology management perspective.
That makes much more sense than Martha Nussbaum's capabilities.
Yeah, really interesting, and I think actually a very refreshing kind of perspective. I suppose the question is, typically when industrial economists talk about capabilities, they're talking about firms having capabilities broadly. So a single, organized firm that has a series of capabilities which are held by people, but also organizational routines, particularly in this behavioral perspective. And I wonder whether that view is, how easily translatable that is to a sort of systems analysis of an innovation system, which clearly is involving firms, but also all sorts of other, or many firms and all sorts of other actors as well. How easy is it to talk about the capability of a network of actors, for instance, rather than the capability of a firm?
So I don't know if that's a statement rather than a question.
It's a question, yeah.
Because but I don't know, so I was hoping it's a statement. So that's really what I'm trying to figure out, and we do believe that, at least to an extent, there's definitely a capability that you can firstly identify and secondly hopefully develop within a system. If you think about because we've seen some transitions in systems, so obviously there's some capability there, and if you understand those capabilities, so the empirical work on this will be firstly on historical transitions, to understand what was, and preferably sustainability transitions, to understand how did the agriculture system transition, how did the mobile money, what worked there, what didn't work. Originally we thought New Zealand would be a very nice parallel case study with South Africa, because New Zealand is perceived as kind of being 10-15 years ahead of us in terms of our utility, our electricity system. But what we then discovered is that another interesting part of this is what we call managed context and given context. So New Zealand, we then found out they are sustainable in terms of how they provide electricity and energy to the country because of their given context. It's just the environment provides them to have geothermal electricity, and they have a lot of water, so they have these kind of green electricity, where we are very coal-based. So we originally thought that that might be a very good case study, but it's not, because it's given context and not managed context. So we think the capability will be very much, we'd have to divide it into given context and managed context, and the capability would sit within the managed context, that which you can actually influence, rather than you sit on you have a lot of geothermal energy and you then use that, therefore you are sustainable.
I was a little bit puzzled because you start with this critique of sustainability transition. One of them, that have stuck in the debates about the lack of agency and studying actors, and you take this as one of your rationales. And then, building on France's suggestion, comment, it is not fully clear to me what your actor actually is. You've been quite ambiguous about it. Is this actor a firm and an environment, or is this?
It's definitely at systems level, so a socio-technical system. So that would be your transport system within a country, or your finance system, or your agricultural system. We are thinking about utilities. So
As the central actor there.
as the
powerful-
socio-technical system, yeah, as the unit of analysis would be your utility system.
And the
So you
actors that
see
are
as an
behind.
actor and a system that is, yeah, I'm a bit confused.
You mean your unit of analysis? So there's multiple actors, right? But
Okay.
within the system. So we will look at a system, we won't look at a firm. So the firm will be one of the actors in the system.
Okay. Well, maybe you should look. There's a whole thing within a specifically strategic niche management that focus on intermediary actors. You have really tangible actors that you can identify that play this central orchestration potential role within
And
these environments.
I think it's almost the same with innovation studies. So the different regional innovation, national innovation systems will also clearly identify those actors.
Well,
But
you know,
it's
these literature, they
Yeah,
overlap, they have fed
absolutely.
each other for 25 years. So there are, that's another point I wanted to mention, is that if you go back enough in time to the origins of this research fields, you will potentially find these linkages that you're trying to do now.
Yeah, I think my point is also similar because what's striking in your presentation is a absence of the transition management insight. So I wonder what happened, because these guys have made some thoughts. Of course, they are very prospective in how they sort of mobilize their knowledge. They are not very much into historical analysis. But they have had some thinking about capabilities, actors, how to mobilize this management staff. So, yeah,
No,
explain.
No, absolutely. What we try to do, and that's why it's in 3 different parts, and then it's so within this specific part, we just really wanted to understand what can we learn from technology management. So I think that was the perspective of this. The other one, where it's the other way around, where we try to understand the socio-technical transitions literature and to understand what can we add to technology management. The TM, transition management, features quite significantly. But it's across the board, so it's 3 parts, and I get your comment, but it was just not missed in this.
Well, you have to be prepared for this type of questions, because they just beg. You just beg for this type of questions. So,
Absolutely.
you have to sort of justify your choices in a broader context, because transition management is just first thing that comes to my mind, and
No, I'll definitely consider that.
yeah.
Okay.